If you've been wondering whether AI agents are still just demos, today's the day that narrative breaks. Infor surveyed 1,000 decision makers and still found 49% stuck in early AI stages. Yet vendors are shipping agentic orchestrators that can coordinate multi-step work across real systems. That mismatch, ambition versus execution, is the story.
And it collides with two realities. Regulation is tightening around what you claim and how you govern these systems, and the hardware world is catching up. Humanoid robots like Boston Dynamics Atlas are moving into real 2026 deployments. Agents are about to leave the chat window and touch your operations. That tracks with what I see. Companies can demo copilots in weeks, but production requires guardrails, identity, permissions, audit logs, evaluation, and a data governance story you can defend. Infor even reports 49% of AI-generated insights and workflows still require manual review by a subject matter expert. That's a huge tax on ROI and a quiet reason pilots die.
And here's the kicker. 31% of respondents were uncomfortable with autonomous agents executing critical business processes. That's the trust gap. Meanwhile, Infor is rolling out an agentic orchestrator in limited availability, positioned around orchestration, interoperability, and observability. They're explicitly leaning into Model Context Protocol Servers, MCP, as a standard way to connect models to tools and data across apps.
The MCP angle matters because it hints at the next platform war, not just which model is best, but who has the cleanest, safest integration layer for actions. If your agent can read a purchase order but can't safely create one or can't prove what it did, then it's a toy. If it can, it becomes labor.
Infor's survey also calls out integration as a cost center, estimating enterprises spend 30 to 40% of total budget on integration. That's why agentic orchestration is such a big deal. The winner isn't the flashiest demo. It's the system that reduces integration friction and makes automation repeatable.
And it's not just, can it run a workflow? It's, can it run a workflow with governance? Infor's product pitch leans on observability features like inline thoughts, an evaluation framework, and focus modes. Those aren't nice-to-haves. In regulated environments, that's the difference between we tried AI and we operate AI.
Practical takeaway. If you're a CIO or ops leader, stop asking which model do we pick as the first question. Ask, what are the top 3 workflows where a 10 to 20% efficiency gain creates a meaningful margin impact? And what data permissions and review gates must exist before an agent touches them?
Exactly. Pick workflows with clear inputs, outputs, and a clean human-in-the-loop handoff. Then instrument success, cycle time, error rate, exceptions. Because if you can't measure it, the agent becomes a cost center, especially as token and inference usage scales.
Translation. If you can get good enough intelligence at lower cost, you can deploy it everywhere. And Meta wants this across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, their AI app, and even their Ray-Ban glasses. That's distribution as strategy.
They also describe different user modes, quick answers versus complex tasks like analyzing legal documents or interpreting grocery images, and a contemplating mode using multiple agents reasoning in parallel. This is a pattern. A supervisor routes tasks to specialized subagents, then reconciles results.
Here's the business implication. If models get smaller and cheaper while staying competent, companies stop treating AI as a special project. It becomes a default layer in every app. That's why Meta is positioning Muse Spark as a foundation that can be turned on everywhere, not a single flagship wow demo.
And CNBC notes Meta's 2026 CapEx range at $64 billion to $135 billion. So while they pitch efficiency at the model level, they're still paying the industrial scale bill at the infrastructure level to keep up.
So what should viewers do? If you're building products, optimize for portability across models. Treat models as replaceable commodities where possible, and invest in evaluation harnesses. If you're a business leader, budget for change management, not just compute, because the limiting factor is adoption inside teams.
Also, watch for the private API preview to paid API access pattern. As vendors productize agents, costs and rate limits become strategy constraints. You need usage policies, caching, fallbacks, and a plan for when the model is unavailable. This is the piece many people miss. Embodied AI isn't waiting for perfect general intelligence. Atlas is framed as an industrial worker, fully electric, designed for dynamic environments with a cited 50 kilojoules payload. And they emphasize learn once, deploy across the fleet. Once a single robot learns a task, it can be replicated across the whole fleet.
Hyundai's involvement is a big tell. Boston Dynamics mentions Hyundai Motor Group preparing to deploy tens of thousands of robots into its own facilities and plans for a robotics factory capable of producing 30,000 robots per year. That's a scale target that starts to look like a real labor market shift.
And the DeepMind partnership matters. Integrating foundation models into Atlas is basically saying we want a generalizable policy layer. Combine that with enterprise agent orchestration, and you can imagine a closed loop: demand forecast, production schedule, warehouse task list, robot execution, telemetry back into planning.
But let's be honest, humanoids in factories aren't magic. Success will be about constrained task selection, part sequencing, material movement, repetitive pick and place. The ROI model is uptime, throughput, safety, and reduced turnover for the most punishing tasks.
Exactly. And the enabling tech isn't just the robot body, it's integration into manufacturing systems. Boston Dynamics calls out connecting to MES and WMS via Orbit software. That's the unsexy part that makes deployments real.
Action item for operators. Treat humanoid deployments like any other automation program. Define SLAs. Define exception handling. And define workforce strategy. Because humanoid robot in the aisle changes job design and training, even if headcount doesn't drop immediately. And the states are moving too. Patchwork risk. They cite state UDAP actions, targeting marketing claims, bias, disclosures, and data practices, plus algorithmic pricing scrutiny. So if your business is deploying AI agents, you need governance and documentation as part of product, not a slide deck for later.
Reuters adds nuance. The FTC may be less eager to police product functionality purely because tools can be misused, but it's still enforcing against false representations of capabilities. So AI washing isn't a vibe problem, it's a liability problem.
Here's the harsh truth. If you can't explain what your agent does, what data it uses, and what controls exist, you will eventually be forced to slow down, either by your internal risk team, your customer's procurement team, or a regulator.
And for global teams, the EU AI Act clock is real. -X's overview emphasizes that most high-risk obligations become enforceable on OG2 2026, risk management, data governance, technical documentation, logging, human oversight, plus at least one AI sandbox per member state. That means your compliance posture needs to be built this year, not next year.
So what's the playbook? Inventory your AI systems. Classify risk. Tighten contracts with vendors. Standardize documentation, and align what marketing promises with what engineering can verify. The companies that operationalize compliance will ship faster, not slower, because they'll avoid the panic pause when something goes wrong. Longevity money is accelerating. Longevity. Technology tallies 3.74 billion, raised in Q1 2026, across disclosed longevity biotech financings and pegs the most likely full-year range at about 8 to 9 billion, suggesting the sector is maturing into bigger checks and more serious pipelines.
On the science side, a Phase 2 Ficitin senolytic trial design was published for cancer survivors with reduced physical function. Primary endpoint is 6-minute walk distance, showing the field is pushing senescence targeting approaches toward rigor and measurable functional outcomes, not just biomarkers.
And a cautionary note. A Globe Newswire longevity market piece cites big numbers, but its headline claim about an FDA-cleared first cellular rejuvenation trial isn't clearly substantiated in the text. So treat splashy longevity headlines like marketing until you see the actual trial and FDA docket.
Last one. TechRadar relays Gartner's warning that over 40% of agentic AI projects could be canceled by end of 2027 due to costs, unclear value, or weak risk controls. That's not a reason to avoid agents. It's a reason to pilot with measurement and governance from day one.
That's the breakdown for today. The stories are moving fast, but the playbook for staying ahead doesn't change.
If any of this hit close to home for your industry or your role, the newsletter goes deeper every week. Link in the description.
We're Marcus Reed and Sarah Chen. This is your AI future. Subscribe if you want to keep up, and we'll see you tomorrow.